Beneath the fog, behind the rust, sometimes they come back. There's only one internationally recognized Mopar master, Mark Warman, joined by his friends, family, and dream team, the Ghouls.
Nobody wants to take on the stuff that we take on.
Reviving the past.
100% untouched survivor.
Resurrecting the icons of American muscle.
We are the Shaolin priests of Mopar.
Uncovering stories.
It's the baddest car we have here.
And restoring dreams.
The most iconic muscle car on the planet.
Putting cars back where they belong. On the road.
Here we go.
Beyond a passion.
Oh, that's wild.
One man's obsession. With Mopar perfection. This is Graveyard Carz.
I'm going to be working with Brian today on a really neat car that I apologize now we haven't featured before. I mean, we have so many cars, it's just hard to feature everything. But this is a neat car, and I actually owned it for a long, long time. This is a 1969 Dodge Charger RT SE 4-speed car. That's a very low demographic. There weren't many of them built. We don't know exactly how many. We know how many are registered, and it's not a lot. In the interest of just catching you up, we did the body and the paint, we built out the drivetrain, got it installed. Since then, Brian's done some work on the car. He's just down to taillights, grill, headlights, and some things like that, some rest of the interior. One of the things I want to take a minute and talk about on this car, being the fact that it's a 69 RT SE, means it gets a wood grain dash. I wanted it done right, so I sent it to Mike Mancini back at Instrument Specialties. I always am in shock of how beautiful their craftsmanship is, and I mean that wood grain is exactly the way the wood grain would have been back in the day. These are 50-year-old parts. Original tick-tock-tack, original speedometer, gas gauge, fuel gauge, temperature gauge, all the components. The AM radio was rebuilt back to exact factory specifications, all the peripheral pieces, including the padding. These are originals. You flip it around, you look at the back side, and you've got all new wiring harnesses, all of the key components that you can't go out and buy, whether they're a bracket that holds a turn signal flasher, a four-way flasher, or a relay. These are all replated and redone. No rattle bomb restoration stuff here. The vinyl top and the headliner, Marty and Dylan actually worked together on that. A great learning experience for Dylan because this is all good information. Marty's one of the best in the world at what he does. So they took their time and put those pieces together. But now the headliner, the vinyl top, most of the interiors in it, which brings us up to where we're at now, is Brian and I are gonna work on taillights and grill assembly. Putting the taillights in our 1969 Charger with Mr. B-Man, Chrome Dome. Did you polish your head today? Look at that's sick. All right, show the young folks there at home what we've done to that taillight to make it look so pretty.
Well, we took the original lens and polished it out, cleaned it up. Outside of that lens, we have a brand new chrome bezel. These are always broken and destroyed, so we put a new one on there.
I was just wondering, did you redo the silver in there?
Yeah, the silver's been repainted inside.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
okay.
we can thank Dylan Scott for the paint work
Dylan
on that
Scott
one.
did a good job on that.
I've been here at Graveyard Carz now for 2 years. Dylan's been here for about a year now, and he works underneath me in the reconditioning process. I always tell Dylan, hey, you don't have to be the smartest one in the room, but if you listen and you pay attention and you apply yourself, you can do really good quality work. You take a look at these taillights that Dylan reconditioned, and it's very clear that Dylan's paying attention and listening because these came out really nice. We have a brand new foam gasket.
Is that an original housing?
That's an original housing. It's been sandblasted and tumbled.
See the original part number right there? Boom, boom, boom. Okay.
Original screws that have actually been polished and reused on here.
And then you put a protector over
A
them?
little protector.
Little RPM.
A little RPM, you got it.
All right. So the RPM that we're talking about is a product from ECS. It has to be warmed up, and the part that it goes on has to be warmed up and cleaned. So what we do is, in the case of the taillights, we water blast the housings, which leave them very dull but very, very clean. Then we put them in the Mr. DeBurr tumbler. Spends an hour in that, comes out, and they look like beautiful brand new pot metal. I mean, it's a really nice little unit the way it cleans these up, but it needs protected. So then we put it underneath the heat lamp, warm it up to probably around 100, 120 degrees. warm up the RPM, and we just brush that stuff on it. When it sits, you can polish it out real pretty and shiny, but it will hold up forever.
So we're gonna install those in this beautiful black car today.
Now, why does this 69 Dodge Charger RTSE have a chrome bezel on it?
Because if it didn't have the chrome bezel, you would see a gap.
Good answer. Good answer. That's true.
Okay.
You would see a gap.
That's true, yeah.
Now, whether that's why they did it or not, I don't know, but something I learned doing my Charger, share it with you folk at home. Very simple. I did not know this. So this is definitely a 69 taillight.
Yes.
All right.
No doubt.
So what tells us it's a 69 is the fact that it's got this chrome trim on it where 70 doesn't, right?
Right.
70 Charger doesn't have the chrome trim. Instead, it has a finish panel that goes across the back, right?
But it uses the same lens.
When you look at a 69 Charger's taillight, it has a chrome bezel around it that fastens onto the edge of the plastic. That went away in 70, unless you had a 1970 Dodge Charger base. First two digits of the VIN would be XH. But if you had an XP or an XS, you got a finish panel and taillights with no chrome bezel. You get an XH, and you've got a taillight with a chrome bezel because you get no finish panel. There you go, a little tidbit for you. With that, are we ready to open the trunk and install that?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that.
And that's your side, sir.
That's my side right there.
There you go.
So I am going to.
Oh, you know what I have for you?
You have the show them your
some.
nuts.
I have. I'm going to show you my nuts. Yellow zinc chromate right there, original nuts. It's got a little. What would you call that, Mark?
The retaining nuts that hold the taillight housing to the body. These are a special nut and they have little teeth in them, very much like the nuts that hold the horn in place because the taillight housing has to ground. You're about to put a taillight housing that must be grounded with no auxiliary ground wire going to it and expect it to ground. So what you have to hope for the ground is to come through the stud that holds it all into place because it's welded to the body. You know it's grounded. You put the taillight housing in and you put this nut on it with these cutting teeth, it will cut into the housing, guaranteeing you a good ground. You don't like to strip them out like your predecessor.
No.
We've had our share of guys. We had one guy leave a steering column not coupled together with the steering gear.
How'd that turn out?
Well, my friend Tony D'Agostino was almost killed. There is a coupler that connects the end of the steering column to the sector shaft coming out of the steering gear. It's the main thing that connects those two together. It has splines inside of it that fit down over that sector shaft. But there's also a roll pin that is designed to be driven into a keyway area in the sector shaft. This particular employee opted to not hammer that down into place. And so what happened was when Tony took off to go driving in the car for the first time with the lovely Cindy D'Agostino, it just was all over the place because the steering wheel had come loose from it. Fortunately, he was only going a couple of miles an hour, but we learned a valuable lesson, and that is, I don't care who's putting the cars together, double check it, triple check it, quadruple check it, check everything, and then go back and check it again.
Okay, let's see how we do
If I can get that ratchet, I will go ahead and start tightening mine down.
My favorite right there.
Okay, I should have brought my tools over here, but I'll work with these. This is fine right here. This is just fine. Can I have the right size, or you don't want me to?
Is that not a 7/16? Is that
it is a 7, but those look like 3/8.
Okay, all right. You know, when I taught high school, Mark, my kids had no idea what 3/8 was.
I believe it.
Yeah, high school kids.
Yep, I'm worried about the high school kids today.
I'm a little worried too. We'll give them a chance, won't we?
Well, I don't think we have a choice. Children are the future.
Yeah.
Teach them well and let them lead the way.
Oh, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Yep, good stuff, huh?
That's right. I actually really enjoy working with Mark. When we're throwing out the movie quotes and the song quotes, he knows exactly what I'm talking about, and I know it's not going to be unnoticed. That is a beautiful rear end on that car.
So they're a very nice looking car. For some people, it's their favorite because of the General Lee. For other people, well, like me, of course, it's the 70 because I had one.
Yeah.
The 68 because of the movie Bullet, and everybody remembers it.
Yeah.
68 was the biggest year for these cars.
Was it?
If you look at the production numbers on all these cars, 68 was the biggest year, which makes sense. It's the introductory year for the car for the second generation Charger. Yeah. People rush out and buy it, go crazy, can't wait to buy it. Then the 69 comes out, and it's very similar to the 68. It's got different taillights, different side markers on it, a little bit of different features on the interior, but everybody just bought a 68. So what happens to the sales in '69? Well, they
plummet a little.
I think they were almost half.
Huh.
Then you go over to '70, it's the same thing. It's a different taillight, different side marker, a little bit of feature changes and stuff like that. And they're even down further. So the lowest production is '70, second most production is '69, and then your '68s, of course, they're up there. And I think '68s were almost 100,000.
Now, you told me the other day that '68s were getting really hard to find.
These days, everything's hard to find, but '68s are getting a lot of money for. '69s. The '68 to '70 second generation Chargers are just on fire.
Yeah.
And I don't see it slowing down. You see that stuff I'm bringing in.
Yeah, yeah.
Paying 20 and 30 grand for a car that's pretty rusty, but it's all there. Which, when we were kids, the $500 car.
$500, yeah.
Okay, got mine, go ahead.
All right, here we go.
All right, so as soon as he gets those tightened down, we'll put the bulbs into the sockets, probably carpet, back seat bottom, console, steering column, and seats, and that wraps up the interior. And we are ready to put the front end on.
Yeah.
All right, so as soon as he's done here, we're gonna move to the interior of the car. Interior. That is a nice looking.
It is.
Coming up, as assembly continues on the 1969 Charger RT SE 4-speed, Brian tries to avoid the mistakes of his unnamed predecessors.
It was probably the roll pin's fault.
And while reviewing the footage, the show's producer decides to risk his career by exposing Mark Worman once and for all.
Mark will deny it, and I happen to have photographic evidence.
When Graveyard Carz returns.
After Mark and I finished the taillights, I was able to move on to the interior, which for the most part is a one-man job. So I'd already installed the glass in the interior trim panels and the dash assembly. So that left the back seat. Yeah, the first thing I do is set the back of the back seat into place and pull it down into position and lock it into place. After the back of the back seat is locked into place, I can put the armrest on the left rear inner panel. Now, the reason that armrest is off is because you cannot get that back seat back into position with that armrest already installed. Doesn't give you enough room. So the next thing I do with all of those items in place is work on the rear portion of the carpet. So this is a process of fitting, steaming, trimming, pushing down into all the crevices, getting the carpet extremely hot so that it'll mold down to the floor, and trying to get it to fit in there exactly like the floor pan. Man, if you don't take your time and do that right, you can end up with some really, really bad installs like I've seen at some of the shows. Once I have that back half of the carpet in place where I like it, it all looks good, it's all nice and formed to all the contours, then I can get the lower portion of the back seat, slide it into place, click it down, take the seat belts, lay them out nice where they belong, and we're ready to move on. So after the back half of the interior is completely put together and it's all nice and in place the way I like it, I can move on to the front half of the carpet, which is a lot more time consuming. When you're dealing with an automatic transmission on the floor with a console, there's a lot more cutting and trimming and fitting that all has to happen to get that to lay down nice over that center hump and out to the edges to make sure you have enough carpet to cover each side and you're not short one way or the other. And then you're working it up around the gas pedal and the brake pedal and around underneath the heater box. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy. Now, there's a couple mistakes you can make you got to be very careful of. First of all, when you're cutting that slit down the middle to work the carpet around the shifter, if you go too low or you get out to the edge and you start trimming it too short, you've got to open a brand new box and start over. Boss don't like that.
The console on the 68 to 70 Charger has got to be one of the sexiest consoles on the planet. So I'm just going to take 1 second and share that with you.
So since doing my first console, I've done a number of them now, and I've learned a lot. Mark's been a great trainer on this as well, especially on this last one that I did.
C16 center console. We have this beautiful wood grain finish. Now this has a applique over it to protect it. But if you look at that, that is just a beautiful finish. Now 69 and 70 use a wood grain. 68, they're a metallic crossbar chrome, all chrome throughout it. This is not an afterthought on Chrysler's part. This is a well thought out part. So when this goes in, it goes in the car, but you can see clearly that there's a boot on the ground already that bolts to the floor, that separates the floor from the shifter itself, keeps all the dirt and everything out. But then this upper console piece, which will end up going right there when we're done, has another boot on it, which is nicely put into place with these fasteners. A well thought out unit. You have your lamps here for your console courtesy. When you open the door, those will pop on. This big piece here is actually fiberglass. If you turn that over maybe.
See that?
So this whole piece here, you won't have with an automatic transmission. You wouldn't have this big cutout. But because Mopar on their 4-speeds offset it all to the left-hand side, they had to cover it, that big side step, and that's what they used to cover it with, this fiberglass piece right here. If you are ready, let's pick it up and install it in the car.
Let's do it. You got her?
Yep.
Okay.
Careful there, camera boy. Got a little something back there.
All right. Let's see what we got here.
Yeah, nice that finishes that off in there.
It sure does.
4 screws to set it.
4 screws to set it. I like to set these back 2 first.
Pretty much is just plug and play. Once he pre-fitted a couple of times, but roll it in, put it into position where the brackets are, put your screws into it. Now you have your console mounted. After that, you put on the top plate for the 4-speed. You'll have to do a final adjustment on the glove box door. There's always a lot of playing around with those. They didn't fit great from the factory, so we'll play with that a little bit, but overall, we should be done here in a couple of minutes and be able to move forward. My Charger had a console in it, automatic. Same console meaning looks the same, except it doesn't have the side piece for the 4-speed.
Just working towards getting these in here. A little tight right there.
Is it the 14s in the front?
Yeah. See, that must
Is that actually going into anything?
I haven't got mine started yet.
I don't think mine is either.
One of the things about the console is they're made of plastic. You can manipulate them a little bit. On the top of the console, you've got a glove box door, you've got a trim plate, and you've actually got a finished plate on the rear, so you've got 3 pieces that need to line up perfectly with each other. And if you just set them on there out of the box, they're not gonna do it. So you're able to get in there, make some adjustments, push and pull a little bit, get your screws in the right position so that everything lays down and you get nice gaps and it all lines up together well. That's the thing it took me a while to figure out, but now that I've got it figured out, I think these are gonna be a little bit easier moving forward.
So he's just putting the last couple of screws in the console. Next thing we're gonna bring in is the top plate.
Yep.
Little shifter's gonna go first, second, third, fourth. Reverse.
All right.
Ready for a top plate?
Pretty secure, yeah.
Okay, let's slide that down there. Line that up with that.
We gotta start with, there we go.
Okay, and then turn sideways and go under here.
It's like, what was that game? Chutes and Ladders?
Chutes and Ladder. Never played it. Had a dead dad. Tumor in my foot and colorblind as a bat.
That's
I
unfortunate.
didn't get those things.
It didn't.
Part of my job is going through these episodes at the very final stage, and I notice things over the years. Mark keeps going back to his old bag of tricks.
Hey, I had nothing. I had a dead dad, a tumor in my foot, Osgood slaughter. Rare disease of Osgood slaughter in the left knee region. I had a dead dad, a tumor in my foot, and an automatic transmission that slipped between second and third.
And 8 crayons.
I had 7 crayons. Tara broke the yellow one.
He's got these 4 or 5 things, excuses that he pulls from every time he's faced with something that somebody brings up, something that he maybe should have done as a child.
I don't get to watch Creature Feature, okay? I get to watch a dead dad.
An experience, a game.
Colonel Mustard.
Yeah, I never had that game. I had 4 crayons and a dead dad.
It doesn't matter what it is. If it's a normal part of your childhood, Mark will deny it and then go to one of these excuses.
I should get something for at least the originality. I have a dead dad at 12 years old, so I didn't get art classes like the rest of these guys.
Now, I don't have time to go down the rabbit trail of each and every one of his excuses in this episode, but I wanted to choose just one to examine scientifically, and that one is money. So in this particular clip, Mark has claimed that he did not have the opportunity to play Chutes and Ladders as a kid. Citing, among other things, one of his favorite go-to excuses is that his dad died when he was 12, which we're very sorry for. That's a horrible thing to have happen. But he said that he had to drop out of school, go to work, and help support the family. And that may all be true, but let's just press that one just a little bit further.
Well, Trey ain't no spooner. All he ended up with was a dead dad, colorblind, Osgood slaughter, low blood sugar.
So Chutes and Ladders has been around since the 40s. Now, Mark was born in 1962. The game is designed for kids aged 3 and up. Let's just assume that Mark was 9 years old. So this is 1971, if my math serves me. In 1971, Chutes and Ladders would have cost $4.99. And I happen to have photographic evidence that Mark has received Christmas presents and birthday presents that exceed $4.99. So in one photograph, we have Mark standing in front of a pretty robust Christmas tree, festooned with gifts surrounding him on the floor and holding up a very nice leather jacket, which I'm sure cost more than $4.99. In another photograph, we've got Mark holding up a very nice tapestry or rug with a motocross image on it, and in a little bit of research I did, that would cost around $10. So in the last photo, which is coincidentally the same Christmas that Mark received the leather jacket, we've got several images of him with new plastic car models. Now, these were priced at around $4, give or take, which puts them squarely in the price class of the game Chutes and Ladders. So is it possible that it wasn't that they didn't have the money for Chutes and Ladders, but maybe, just maybe, Mark didn't actually want the game? And when he goes to this bag of tricks over and over again, we are beginning to pull on the threads of his particular psychopathy that is unraveling this proposed narrative of a much grander victimology. And that makes me question this photograph of Mark holding a certificate of sanity.
And that is what it's supposed to look like when it's all done. Last thing we have left is the ball on the shifter. In 1968, the 4-speed shifter for the majority of the year was an inland shifter. You GM guys that know all about this. Had a little pull-up handle to go into reverse. That's how you lock it out. And it used a black ball, shift ball on it. 69, they had a wood grain ball, but I've had people even like Dave Johnson, sweetheart of a guy, had the 69.5 Super B we did. His dad had put a white ball on it back in the 70s or the 80s, and that's what he wanted back on there, but it wasn't right. So when we sent original pictures out on the internet, we got a huge backlash that white ball isn't right on there. Well, that white ball is by request. We know that it's the wood grain ball. Now, all that was off the table in 1970. Do you know why, Camera Boy? The pistol grip shifter. When it went to the pistol grip, there was no going back. Fords and Chevys and AMCs and everybody in the world, they had pistol grip envy. It's true, it's a real thing. And y'all know what I'm talking about too, because I've seen the pistol grip in the Camaros. And you should have the living tar beat out of you.
All right, let's see if we can feed this thing in there. Got to work around that brake pedal.
Okay, hang on right there now.
1 second.
There we go. Don't hurt me.
I won't.
Okay,
I'm stuck behind the brake pedal. Hang tight.
Go ahead and get it where it's ready to come through there.
When it comes to installing these steering columns, definitely get somebody to help you. There are a lot of things that need to be lined up properly for that to go into place just right.
Okay, come on in with it.
There's one person that's got to take that thing and guide it through the opening in the firewall, and you've got somebody else over there receiving it, working around exhaust manifolds and brake lines and trying to get it down to line up perfectly with the steering gear that's sitting there waiting for it.
There we go.
That feels good.
That's it.
All right, let me get a couple of nuts up on here.
It's a pretty simple process at this point. We've got the splines lined up and they're already slid on, so he's just getting the column support brackets in place. But we are on the splines all the way. We have a roll pin that needs to be set.
One of the most important things that I've heard around here is make sure you put the roll pin through the coupler where it mates up with the steering gear. Safety first.
That's that roll pin I was teasing Brian about the other day that one of our former assembly guys went ahead and left out of Cindy D'Agostino's car we were driving it around the building and lost our steering. So it was probably the roll pin's fault.
For sure.
Or the coupler, or the steering gear. Could have been the sun or the moon. Let me tell you whose fault it wasn't. It wasn't the technician's fault. Been doing this a long time, folks. Long time. Heard it and seen it all. Saw a guy spend 6 hours buffing the hood of a 72 Coronet, and every time I walked past it, it didn't look any different than it did before. He goes, I don't want to burn the paint.
Oh.
So I said, well, show me what you're doing. He was holding the buffer an inch away from the panel. He was air buffing.
That's a true story.
No, it's a gospel. I said, dude, what do you think is going to happen? He goes, when you're doing it, it looks to me like you're not touching the panel. You can do that until the second coming, and it ain't gonna look no better. You know what I'm saying? You see what I mean? Wonder I haven't had a breakdown around here. I ain't riding on no plane, Hannibal.
Okay, just one more real quick one, but other than the fact that Mark's afraid of flying and B.A. Baracus is afraid of flying, Mark doesn't drink, B.A. Baracus doesn't drink, Mark's into gaudy jewelry, B.A. Baracus is into gaudy jewelry. Okay, a couple of little connections here, but what in the world does this have to do with installing a grill in a 1969 Dodge Charger?
What are your size 12?
Precious.
Well, no, it's not Mickey from Rocky.
Is that Mickey? That was Bill.
It puts the lotion on.
That's Mickey.
That's what you just did.
I
That
said
was the worst
precious.
impression of Jane
Precious.
Gum I've ever heard. Hey, what's up, my kid? Hi, me. Hi,
Are you telling me I sound like Mickey?
Mickey loves ya.
I hope we can use that. All of that.
I have a real bad feeling you can't.
Oh,
Okay,
man.
we got a steering gear in. So what is next, sir?
Seats and or the front end.
I think Marty is just finishing up the front seat.
Okay.
So next stop is front end, which we have over there and ready to install.
Ready to go. Yeah.
After that, we'll do seats. We have a bumblebee stripe, a windshield, and a back glass. We have to start it up, and it'll be very, very close to getting in alignment and delivered.
Absolutely.
So we do at Graveyard Cars.
I like it.
Hey, yo, what are we gonna do when it's all over, Mick? I know. What are we gonna do? I don't know, kid. Maybe join the circus or something. Rocky 3, man.
Rocky 3. Clubber Lang.
Okay, two quick last things for me and then I'm out, okay? But the first is I apologize for anybody who had to endure Mark doing an impression of Burgess Meredith as Mickey from Rocky doing Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, because that's something you're never gonna be able to unhear. So number two, this finally makes a little bit of sense. In the weird maze of Mark's brain, we've got a connection. And that connection is Mr. T played both B.A. Baracus in A-Team and Clubber Lang in Rocky 3, which apparently is one of Mark's nemesises. What's the plural for nemesis? I don't know. Nemesi? Nemesati? I have no idea. But nonetheless, Mark thinks he's Rocky.
Still to come, conflicts arise as assembly continues on the 1969 Dodge Charger.
We have no RT emblem here.
I asked him to order it 3 months ago.
That bolt, it's half a hole off.
But possibly more important than the assembly work, Brian may have some explaining to do when Mark confronts him about his styling choices.
When did you finally give up and say it's okay, I'm bald?
When Graveyard Cars returns.
This 1970 Dodge Charger RT is one of 7,131 ever built. It left the assembly line with a 440 Magnum engine and an automatic transmission. The 1970 Dodge Charger is my dad's all-time favorite Mopar, as everybody knows. It also happens to be the topic of this week's autopsy report.
Yeah. I had a 70 Charger burnt orange FK5. I'm restoring one right now to look just like it. White top, burnt orange interior, velvet seats. So it would have been an RT except for the dead dad and the tumor in my foot, Osgood, Slaughter, and colorblind. Plus that guy down at the end of the block. But
Wow, okay. Anyways, on that note, this is the topic of this week's autopsy report.
is it?
It's parked here. Okay, so remember folks, we read a fender tag left to right, bottom to top. So let's get started. The first code we have is E86. That's the 440 Magnum engine and it produces 375 horsepower. D32, that's the 3-speed automatic transmission. XS29, the X stands for Charger, the S stands for RT, and the 29 stands for two-door hardtop. U0G, the U means it's a 440 Magnum, the 0 represents the year, so in this case it'd be 1970, and the G stands for the assembly plant, in this case that's St. Louis, Missouri. 165239, that's the unique serial number for this car. Okay, so we're moving up to the next line. FF4, that stands for light green metallic. C6XA, that stands for all vinyl black bucket seats. TX9, that's black upper door trim panels. B24, that's the scheduled production date for this car. So in this case, it's November 24th, 1969. 033486, that is the shipping order number for this car. You can find that number on the broadcast sheet or the window sticker. And then we're moving up to the next line, V1X, black vinyl top. B51, power disc brakes. C16, center console. C55, bucket seats. H51, that's air conditioning. That's a pretty awesome feature back then. We take that for granted nowadays. J25, 3-speed wipers. We're gonna move up a line to M21, and that is drip rail moldings. M31, belt moldings. N85, tachometer. N95, evaporative emissions. R11, AM music master radio. V8X, that is the black bumblebee stripe. We're gonna move up to the last line, and that starts with 26. That means 26-inch radiator. E&D, that is the end of this car's sales codes and the end of this week's autopsy report. See you guys next week.
So right before we install this, I just want to point something out. Little boys and girls in TV land, which camera is my love maker? We have no RT emblem here. Brian knows that.
Yeah.
Mark knows that.
I asked him to order it 3 months ago.
I ordered it 3 days ago. So we know it's not there, so please don't blow up the world and let us know.
Right.
2 is, all of the pieces that you're seeing here, I believe, are the new Classic Industries reproduction grill.
This is the original grill, Mark.
All of this is?
All of that.
What about the moldings?
Moldings are brand new.
Okay,
Yeah.
they're the classics. So this is an
Yeah.
original grill? Boy, that's nice.
I know.
So is it the 68 that we bought all the pieces
Yeah,
for?
we bought
Got
it.
it.
Willie painted this.
That new paint that he's using,
is.
the silver paint?
Yeah.
It's nice. It's a pretty grill. That's a
It's a
good
nice
looking
paint,
setup.
yeah.
Let's put this on there.
Let's do it. You ready?
It's just a slow, easy going
Yeah.
process. We're gonna get this out of our way.
Okay. Installing a grill assembly, that is definitely a 2-person job. So I'm gonna go ahead and have Mark help me with this one. If you try to do it by yourself, you're probably gonna scratch something up, especially on these chargers. This is a big, heavy assembly, and it definitely takes 2 people to get it in place.
That stud right there and that stud there. We just gotta get in that hole there and that hole there. That's the only real steering we have to do. Slide that in there.
All right. When you put this header assembly in place, you're really trying to align about 4 different fasteners all at once. So you need to really take your time. If something goes bad, step away, back off, reassess, try it again. If something feels like it's binding up, don't just force it into place. Man, we can probably put one of our
If you want to put
fasteners
one in there, I'm just gonna make sure I'm in the actual hole over here.
Okay, I just want to get one in here to hold it.
Oh, I'm actually in.
Are you?
Yeah. You hand me a nut and I'll go ahead and throw a couple of nuts on it.
Okay.
I know they were there, but.
There we go. Your nuts, sir.
See, that's just silly humor right there. That's childish. My jokes and my humor, they have a weight of intellect behind them. You know what I'm saying? There's a thought behind my comedy. I don't just shoot out whatever sparks off in my head. If I did, I'd be in prison.
Okay.
I'm assuming you didn't clean the threads on the studs.
I did not.
Good job.
Thanks.
Well, I just paid you back because now I just dropped one of the fasteners. we're even now. So cleaning threads is getting a tap and a die, and cleaning up the bolt threads, cleaning up the nut threads, making sure that you can roll them in, roll them back out by finger, because at some point, you're not gonna be standing here in a perfect work environment. That fender needs to come in. One of the things about this is this header, this mounting panel is only so wide. So if your fenders are set out a little bit too wide, you can't get your bolts started in them. So when we started this, we agreed that we had too wide of a gap between the fender and the hood over there.
Right.
That fender needs to come in a little bit.
Okay.
Just a hair.
Yeah.
Because I can't get my bolts started.
Okay.
So I don't think that's gonna happen.
I see that.
So can you loosen the 2 half-inch bolts up on the fender?
Yep.
Those 2 right there.
These 2 right
Yep,
here.
just get those loose.
Okay.
I think with those, we can at least
We get a
walk
half
it
inch.
in a little bit.
Okay, I will get that.
Once we do that, we'll put the rest of the fasteners in it, tighten up the bottom of it. There's a couple brackets down there that have to go in, and then I'm probably gonna end up cutting him loose to do the bumper and valance and seats. I gotta go call in the windshield to have it set. I gotta call the back glass to have it set, and Dougie's coming over to put the carburetor on it. So here in a few days, I think 2-3 days, this thing ought to be ready for a road test and a wheel alignment, which would be great.
So.
I'm optimistic enough I might set up an appointment for that.
Oh, I like that.
That one will start, but it shouldn't be into that. So let's check our gap. We'll go ahead and set the bolt in here. And
See
we'll
what we're
check our
dealing
hood
with.
to fender gap and see what we have.
Okay.
Well, again, you probably didn't clean the threads, right?
I don't typically clean these threads.
You should clean those threads.
I will clean these threads
You
from
now
now
have
on.
my authorization to clean those threads.
Done and done.
Okay, good job.
Oh, I didn't clean those threads.
Yeah. The fact that that bolt, it's half a hole off, and this won't come over anymore. So we've got to realign the front fenders to a point where those will go into their spot like they're supposed to. After that, do a final adjustment on the hood, put the rest of the bolts in this and tighten it down.
That's right.
So for the most part, it looks to me like it all needs to come over this way.
Still to come, when Mark critiques Brian's aerodynamic hair strategy.
Did you try Rogaine? Did you?
No, of course
Did you put
not.
stuff on your head?
No.
Brian and Mark gang up on Royal's suburban-inspired do.
A cul-de-sac.
It's a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
It makes you look 30 years older.
Finally, Brian enlists the youngest Scott when the eldest Scott drops the ball.
He's back there on his phone doing what he does. There's no pain on the balance. That's what I know.
When Graveyard Cars returns.
Even though we've pre-fit the fenders and the doors long before it ever got painted, in this particular case, when we put the latch tray on, we had no trouble getting the bolts in on one side, but when it came to the other side, they were about 1/8 of an inch shy of being able to go into the hole. Now, I probably could have used, come along and pull the fenders together. The other thing Body Man will do sometimes is they'll take those holes and they'll make them just a little longer. Not here, because they like their jobs. So in this particular case, we've got our header fitting our fenders, which is great. The grill is pretty close. It just needs to get shifted a little bit underneath the header this way.
Yep.
And the hood needs to be adjusted a hair that way. The only thing is we're not going to do that right now. The heavy lifting is done here. This is the part that takes a couple of guys to do. So with that, I'm going to let Brian go ahead and put the bumper and the valance on. And then we'll do a final fit and align.
Perfect.
You can go ahead and put the seats in it. I'm going to go call in the windshield and back glass and set up an appointment. And then I got to get Doug to put the carburetor
Yeah, why don't you grab Dougie? We'll throw a carburetor on here.
on. All right, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
And I don't mean this in a bad way.
No, of course not.
When did you give, no. When did you finally give up and say it's okay, I'm bald?
It's okay.
Did you try to fight it for a little bit, like Royal's still fighting his?
2002.
No, I understand you're bald, I get that.
2000.
This part here, Royal won't shave this part.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
You have bizarre shaped ears. You have no hair. You need to shave that off.
Mark, I can't
Looking head.
let go. I can't let go of this.
He's quoted 100 times saying, I can't. Yeah, it's a halo.
It's a cul-de-sac.
A cul-de-sac.
It's a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
It makes you look 30 years older.
So why did you win? Yeah, it's weird.
Royal looks
but it
90.
doesn't. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean-
that makes no sense.
No.
So you, at what age?
28.
28, you were done. You knew it wasn't going to happen. Did you try Rogaine? Did you?
No, of course
Did you put
not.
stuff on your head?
No.
You ought to try putting some on now.
Why?
Whoa. I realize you live in the Coburg Hills, right?
Coburg Hills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Coburg Hills have eyes. Starring Jupiter. Jupiter 2.
Put the hat back on.
I would. Yeah, you guys close those irises way down on the cameras for that beam. Finish putting her together. You did all right there, buddy. You did okay.
Well, thanks for the help, buddy.
Just don't understand why you'd want to be bald. You imagine this face bald? God, it'd be like an omen. I don't think so.
So now that we got the steering column bolted in place, I can get the front seats installed. So I'm gonna start on the driver's side. First thing I like to do is grab that driver's seat, set it in. It doesn't matter which side you start with. I like to drive these cars, so I wanted to get the driver's seat in first. So we set the seat in place, 4 nuts to attach it on the bottom, and then we can snap in the headrest, and it is done. Move on to the passenger side. Same thing, rinse and repeat. We're gonna set the seat in place. 4 nuts on the bottom. Snap in the headrest. And voila, we have a completed interior. Time to move on to the outside of the car. All right, Dylan, what do you say we get this bumper on this old 69 Charger, huh? So I wanted to get a little bit of help getting the last couple of items on the car, the front bumper and the valance. So I went ahead and grabbed Dylan and said, hey, let's get this done. Dylan's been doing such a good job with his reconditioning, and now I'm starting to get him more and more involved in the assembly on these vehicles. So we looked around, and lo and behold, the valance was not ready because the painter, Will, the painter, did not get it painted in time. He's back there on his phone doing what he does. I don't know what he does, but there's no paint on the valance. That's what I know. So I grabbed Dylan and said, let's go ahead and get this bumper on the car. So what I've learned here is the best way to install these bumpers on these old cars is to start by installing the rearmost bolt, and we're going to use that as a pivot point. And then that allows you to rotate the bumper up into place. And the car's holding the bumper now, and all you have to do is make some minor adjustments, left and right, up and down, to get that fitting beautiful right up against your grill. You have to be really careful because you've got painted surfaces on the edges of those fenders, and it's a tight fit. And if you just go in there all willy-nilly and give it a shove, you might scratch the paint. So you've got to really take your time and be patient. Another reason I like having one guy on each side of the bumper. Beautiful thing about it is, once you've got your adjustments in place, up and down, side to side, it was so worth the time and effort because that is one of the sexiest front ends you will ever see on any car. Hey, so other than waiting for Willie to get that valance painted for me, and I know he will, I've got that beautiful V8W white bumblebee stripe that needs to go on the back of the car. Now, I've been able to do some decals. I've done quite a few of them since I started assembling cars here, but this will be the largest piece that I've been asked to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and get Mark, because he's done a few of these. He's the old expert. I'm gonna bring him in and have him give me some of his tips and tricks so that I have a little bit more knowledge in my bank next time I'm asked to do one of these.
Next time on Graveyard Cars, Brian and Mark wrap up this 1969 Charger RT SE with a V8W white bumblebee stripe.
You want to know how to do this right, you just let me know.
What'd he say?
And cousin Dougie assists in the paint job, but will his baking methods compete with Will's?
Okay, let's just stop.
Find out on the next episode of Graveyard Cars.
Heroes and villains, sinners and saints. If you didn't have Mark Warman, you'd have to invent him.
I just wanted to see if it would work. That's all. I'm not a bad guy.